I think we're still missing some people. They're probably just a bit late, but we're just gonna get started because we don't have too much time. Basically, we're gonna be covering Node.js and Express. These are kind of high-level topics, you could say. They're not too high level, but they might be depending on your skill. And this is probably also gonna be like our last lesson for our web development section. We kind of think we want to like move on to something different because we feel like don't want to like keep going too much and go like too advanced and stuff like that. Um, anyways, so we first are gonna finish covering JavaScript, the basic syntax. The last time we met 2 weeks ago, we went over let and const, control flow, right? The if statements, for loops, while loops, arrays, functions, var, objects as dictionaries. But we did not have time to finish number 7, which was callback functions. So we'll start with that today. And then my mouse just all right. So callback functions is gonna be an issue. All right. So I guess we'll start with callback functions. But first, so sorry, having some issues. My mouse just died, so that's kind of inconvenient. But basically, we're gonna go over callback functions first, and then we'll be covering Node.js and NPM. So go over what is Node, and how to install it. And then what are NPM packages? Where can you find NPM packages? How to install them and how to use them. And then after that, we're going to spend the majority of the time. Zenkai will go over a bit more talking about Express and how to create like a static website. Give me 1 second. I'm going to plug in another mouse and hopefully this will work.
Hey guys, the yearbook is really looking for pictures of you guys for the club page. There will be a club yearbook page. So if we can maybe turn cameras on later at the end of the meeting and take a picture. And then also if you could have like a parent or someone take a picture of you, like, I don't know, in front of your screen showing something that you were doing in the club, that would be great. And then you can send it to me or Mrs. Harmonson.
All right, yeah. So Zenkai, make sure to leave a bit of time at the end for that. All right, so anyways, we're gonna first start with callback functions. So we're going to download the repository from GitHub from last time. Wait, so actually I have the link on another screen. So I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with GitHub, but anyways, if you navigate over to this link, um, basically this is the code in the file from our last meeting, the last time. And then actually something I learned that was pretty cool was you can go to downgit github.io and you can download a folder from GitHub. Anyways, but basically create a download link, and if you guys need this, you want to follow along or something, you can download that. Otherwise, I'm just gonna download it myself. And I'll send the link in the chat too if you want. Basically, and then after you download it, you would want to unzip it. Yeah. All right, so and now I'm gonna head over to my VS Code, and we're gonna go pretty quick because Express is gonna take a while. But anyways, this was our file from last time. This was the stuff we had. Basically, we're gonna go over callback functions. So the first demonstrate callback function, we're gonna create 2 separate functions. The first one's gonna be called first, and we're just going to console log the number 1. And then we're going to create another function that's pretty much identical. And this time we'll console log 2, right? This one's called second. And then we're going to call each respective function. So we're going to call first, first, and then second, second. And then hopefully when we call this, we should see in the console, right, 1 and 2. And then I'm also going to run this on a server. Okay, so now let's go back. Um, if I open up my console on the side, oh, I have it open on the side. That's okay. But you see, we get console like 1 and 2 in the bottom, right? So that's pretty cool. But however, when we're coding like in real workspace environment or something, right? Not just pretending 1 and 2. Sometimes there might be like code delays, right? So for example, if you want to like compute something that might take a lot of time, um, it might take a lot of time. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna simulate a 500 millisecond code delay. So that's like roughly half a second, I think. Yeah, about half a second. So this set timeout thing here, basically what it does is just it sets a timeout for 500 seconds. And we're gonna move our console log 1 into here. So what this is doing is the 1 is gonna get console logged after half a second. And so this time, if we go back and if we run it and I reload, um, you see the 2 gets console logged before the 1. And that's because even though we call the function first, like first, it doesn't matter. There's something about async code. We're not going to get into it. But basically, all you need to know is that it doesn't really wait for the first function to finish. It just waits for whichever one, finishes first. They call them both at the same time. You can think of it, right? And sometimes that's kind of bad because we want one to get console logged first, even though it takes 500 milliseconds to console log 1. So that's where callbacks come in. Basically, what we want to do now is we're going to put in a parameter here. It's going to be called callback, and then we're going to call the callback over here. This might be a tiny bit confusing, so it should be 500. I forgot to do that, but it should work. And then we're going to put second here. So what we're doing now is we're not calling the second function like after. Instead, we're calling it inside the first function. So what happens is we call the function named first. It does a set timeout. It console logs 1. Then it runs our callback. What callback does is it runs the function, whatever is passed in parentheses here, right? And currently what's passed in parentheses here is the variable second, right? And second stands for this function here. So basically what happens now is it console logs 1, it calls the callback, right, after 500 milliseconds, and it calls the callback, which calls the second function and console logs 2. So now it's going to still be in order, even though there's a 500 millisecond delay. So if we reload and run it, you'll see it's a 1 and 2 here. And then that's all for callbacks. There's actually more that we had planned for it, but we're running low on time, so it's okay. And then now we're going to cover Node.js and NPM. So what is Node? Node is basically a JavaScript like runtime backend environment. It's a bunch of fancy words. Basically, all you need to know is it like runs JavaScript and it's very popular. In fact, like your Google Chrome, it's based off Google's like Node engines and stuff like that. Um, and for beginners, Node is very popular because it's quite easy to learn too. So how to install Node? If you do want to install it, I if you aren't going to use it and you feel like you just want to listen along, I wouldn't recommend installing it because there's no purpose. But otherwise, it's pretty simple. Go to this link here. I'll paste it in the chat, and then it has options immediately to download for Windows. I would recommend downloading this one because it's more stable. And then if you want to perhaps like download one for Mac, you can go to downloads and there's a Mac OS installer too. And then if you do download it, it'll ask you to download a .msi. It is safe, so you click save, and then after it's downloaded, you should be able to run it. It might take some time. All right, so it opens up, right? And it says welcome to Node.js. And then it's going through some stuff. You can let it wait. And then after it goes through, it'll ask you for a bunch of like questions, right? What do you want to install? Which parts of it do you want to install? And then if you don't know like what you're doing, like you're unsure what it's asking you, I'd recommend either researching it or just stick with the default options, right? So we accept, click next, just stick with the default options, and then default options go through. Default options is unchecked, right? So just go through, and then you would click install. And it'll ask you like maybe for your password. I already have it installed, so I'm gonna cancel it out because I'm not gonna install it again. And so that's how you install Node.js. All right, so now we're gonna look at also, and after you do have it installed, you can go to like your command line or whatever command line interface you're using. And then if you type in node, it should show up something like this. It gives you kind of like a command prompt for node, and you can like run JavaScript commands like 1+1 2 var x equals 1, and then you can console log x back out 2. That's basically JavaScript. And then you can type dot exit to exit from it. So now we're gonna look over NPM packages. You can find them at npmjs.com. These are actually really cool. The best analogy I can come up with is they are like Chrome extensions, kind of, right? So like they're open source, created by developers across the world, and then you install the ones you want, and they perform a specific functionality for your project at the time. And then so for our case, I'm just gonna download one that's like very common one. It's called Chalk. And then make sure when you're searching for your package, you spell it correctly because it's only based off spelling and like literally how it's like worded out. So if you like misspell something, you might be downloading a wrong package, which isn't good. And I also recommend every time you check the weekly number of downloads. So as you can see, Chalk is downloaded 81 million times a week, which is actually pretty impressive. So if you see like a really big number here, that's normally good. It's probably safe, right? Because multiple people download it. And to install, you want to do npm install chalk. So where you would do this is, so back in your VS Code, I'm going to close the server. And then I'm going to create a directory. We're going to call it chalk. All right, and you want to do npm install chalk. And then you're going to see it does some stuff, blah, 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 and it finishes. And then you might see some warnings. Warnings should are almost always fine. If you ever see something red that says like an error, that might be a problem, and I'd recommend Googling it or messaging someone. But if you just see warnings, that should be fine. And then you can go back to this is like its like little guide, and you can see how to use it. So the usage is pretty simple. You create a const called chalk and you require it, and you can start using it. And I also explain like what it does and like why people download it so many times. So I'm also creating a file. It's called test.js. After you npm install, you might see these things here. Those are perfectly fine. They're normal. They should be there. And so we're gonna do console log chalk.green test. This is green. Right. So hopefully you can kind of tell by now what it's doing. But basically, right, first off, I run the file with node test.js, but it's console logging whatever you want in a certain color, right? Chalk is like chalk, so it gives you different color options. And then we can do the same thing, right? We can do red, and then it's gonna console log it as red. And though it says green, but it's console logs as red. And there's many more functionalities. I could do background colors and all that stuff. But this is just like a basic example of how to use NPM packages in general. So now I'm gonna stop sharing, and then Zenka is gonna continue.
Okay, give me a second here. So let's see. Switch to okay, so hopefully, okay, so I'm going to like basically demo how to like use the package Express. So express.js. Oh shit, wrong one. So express.js is basically a a Node.js web development framework, and you can install it from npm, the thing that Eric showed earlier. And it's a pretty popular framework, I guess, for web development, at least within the Node.js realm. So we're going to use it in our demo. And basically what you want to do is, let's see. Okay, so you should first install it globally, Express generator. And then after you've done that, you can run the Express binary, and then you can generate a site, like your own website, but instead it's in a folder, and it has like pre-generated scripts and HTML pages and stuff. And so this Express binary is going to do that for you. And let's see. So let's say you want to see what help options it has. So -H stands for help. Okay. And so we can do Express. Let's use EJS. It's a templating engine or a view engine. We'll explain that later, but let's just use EJS now. And then let's also add Git in case we upload it to GitHub. And let's call this website demo website. Let's see, is that all? Yeah, that should be all. And you can see that it created all these files and directories for us, and all we have to do is change into this directory and then run npm install to basically install all the dependencies listed in package.json. Not this one. So we have package.json here, and npm install will just read this file and then install all the packages needed. And if you want to run the app, run this command. We'll later, okay, let's just cd into it real quick and install the dependencies. And so what npm install or npm I will do is it will like download all of these packages listed in package.json, basically cookie parser, debug, blah, blah, and of course, Express. It will install these dependencies and store them inside a folder or a directory called node modules. So let's run npm I real quick. Yeah. So now we'll see that we have a log file, package log, that basically stores like the current versions and dependency relationships between all of these packages. And you don't have to worry about that, but you do have to keep it though. Like it's pretty important. Like it keeps track of what's inside the node modules directory. So now that we have all of these dependencies installed, we can basically well, before we dive into like how to use this module, this module like Express, we'll first talk about how HTTP works, like on a pretty like surface level. So basically, so HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Okay, it's what you and like your browser and all the servers use when they're communicating. And it's basically a common language between your computer and others' computer when you're basically your computer is the client. Like normally when you're visiting, for example, google.com, your computer is a client, and the client makes a request to the server, and then the server responds with the web page you need and all these pictures and stuff. Okay, so let's see. So when you're making a request, you have to specify what type of request it is. And then you have to also have some headers to specify additional information. Let's see if we can view the request. This is for headers. Yeah, for example, so yeah, these are the headers. Wait, actually, request. This is a URL. This is that's a method. So let's see if we can request headers. Yeah, here. But these are not really. Oh, whatever. Sample HTTP request. So basically you have a, so in a sample HTTP request, you basically send all of these texts to the server, and then the server will respond according to the request. So basically you have a HTTP method, and in this case, you're getting something from the server, get it? You're getting something from the server, so you use get, and you say that I want this, this URL. So basically it's whatever that comes after, or whatever that comes after, including the first slash. And you want to specify what protocol you're using, which is HTTP, and the version number of the HTTP protocol that you're using. And user agent is basically, in this case, your browser, like what protocols and what encryption methods and whatever it supports. That's all encoded in this, I guess. The host is basically what okay, how do I say this? Okay, the host is basically this thing right here. So although some of you might know that this this URL or this domain name gets resolved to an IP address, it's still important for the server to know what what domain name you use to access this website for stuff like cross-site request forgery and stuff. So we're going to ignore all these, the rest of these headers. There's also the post request, which is used when you're uploading something to the server usually. So that's, you can see that unlike the previous request, we also have some data that gets sent with this request, and this is called the body. And so this format is called URL encoded format, like here, specified in the content type. And the content type is so you specify the content type using something called MIME. Okay, so this is basically, you can call it the media type, whatever, but usually it's MIME. And pretty sure you can find a bunch of MIME formats online. For example, for plain text, I think it's like, for plain text, text.plain, for PDF, it's probably application text PDF or something like that. And there's like different types with different kind of file formats. And yeah, and this URL encoded string is this type of format is also used in the URL. Like, let's see. So for example, in a Google search, which is typically a GET request, you see like after the actual URL, you also have these query parameters, and which is what comes after the question mark. And each parameter is separated by ampersand, and then each parameter is a key and value pair. So new window equals 1, safe equals active. That's probably the safe search, and some additional Google stuff that I don't understand. And yeah, that's basically how HTTP works. Let's see. So we're going to open this demo website, and then we're going to go into app.js, which is the main file of this website. So I'm gonna basically explain how this works from top down. Oh my God, what is it doing? So basically, you can see that the site generator has basically has basically generated for us a basic usable static website. Static means that it's not really doing anything in the HTML. Like you're just sending HTML to the client and you're not doing anything with it. And on the top, you can see there's a lot of basically packages, or NPM packages that gets imported, and using this require function. And one thing to note that is you can also like require like your own JavaScript files. Like a single JavaScript file can be regarded as a single module if you like set the module.exports variable at the end. And you can then require it in another script and use it as a module. So let's see. And you call the express function that you got earlier by like requiring the module, and use this express function to like basically create a app instance. And this app is basically your server. And each call to its methods are basically like configurations for your current server. And let's see. So okay, so you might also notice that it's in these custom modules that we've imported are something called routes, or is that how you pronounce it? Routes, yes. And well, so each route represent a path in the the website structure. So for example, for the website tutorials point, you can have the root can, so you can have HTTP and maybe some other paths here, but for Google, let's see. So for Google, you can have u/i/c, and you can also have URL. You can probably also have search, like search, but yeah, that's all the different routes you can have in a web server, and you can basically manage them separately in these routers. So we have a separate router for the index, which is basically the main page of the website. We can also have a separate router for the users route of the website, and probably manages like user API and stuff. And let's see. And here we also see some view engine related stuff. So a view engine basically helps you to run, to process, like pre-process the HTML page before you send it to the client. So let's say you're Google, and then somebody sends you a request, and you don't want to just send the same request to every, you don't want to just send the same response to every client, right? You're going to like customize the page for each client. So you're going to use this view engine, and you're going to add some JavaScript in this in the, well, what should I say, in the view for the specific page that the client requested. For example, before sending out index.html, the view engine will process index.ejs based on the current request. Like you can basically substitute values and even run some JavaScript in here. But we're not going to go too deep in that, because you can basically look it up yourself later, and we're also running low on time. And so Express also uses something pretty cool, which is called the middleware. Okay, so let's see. Okay, middleware are basically intermediate functions that process, the client's request, like partially. Process the request partially before it gets sent to your own functions. For example, here we have several middleware, and you can specify middleware using the use function. And we have a logger, which basically logs every request. And we have the like JSON parser for the like probably the post requests. And we can also parse the URL encoded body for post requests. We also need to parse cookies in the HTTP requests. So if you don't know, a cookie is basically a piece of data that the server can store on your side, like in your browser, and the cookie gets sent every time you access the website. So for example, it can be used for authentication. So let's say you log into a website and then using your password. Well, now that website knows that you are the user, it sends back some kind of cookie that proves that you're the user without actually saving your password on your browser side. So in this case, you only have to send this token, this session, or this cookie to the server without actually sending your password to prove your identity. Hope that makes sense. And lastly, you have this middleware. Which basically serves static files from the public directory. So static files means that they're just static files means that the web server don't have to handle it in any particular way. You can just send it back to the in the response as it is. Like instead of having index.ejs, we can just send back something like index.html if it's found in the public directory. And we can also, and each router is also a middleware kind of. And yeah. So so when these requests, after going through all of these middlewares, the request goes into the routers, and based on what path, what route the URL is. So if you start, so if the request space only contains a slash, basically no additional routes whatsoever, you can just jump to the index. Let's see. So let's check out the index route. So basically, we're still requiring the Express module, and then we're basically creating a router so that we can export it later for this module. And remember that we have to require this routes/index module from app.js. That's why I have to create a router here and export it. And for the router, we have to define how to handle specific requests. So in case of a GET request, we only expect a single slash and no additional parameters. So if you want additional parameters, you can specify using a colon and then the parameter name, and you can get it by using the rec.params.parameter name, if I recall correctly. But you can always learn it on your own. There's plenty of tutorials on Google. But in this case, you have this GET request, and you expect only a single slash, and then you have a callback function. So this F thing is function, and rec is request, is the request object. Res is the response object. Next is the next middleware. In this case, we don't really need the next middleware because in this case, we basically send the file back to the client, and there's no next step to it. We're just done with it. We're done with the request, so there's no next step. And what we can do is we can basically render the index view with the using the view engine with the title express. And you can also specify additional variables to be used within the view, like name equals John or something, and then
Wait, Zenkai, sorry to interrupt really quickly, but Ms. Silcock, do you want to do the picture thingy right now?
Yeah, we can.
Wait, so do you need us to do anything or like?
I just need cameras on. If you want to be part of the yearbook photo, turn your cameras on and get close to your screen so I can take a screenshot, and we'll just do a group shot. And then again, they also want some individual shots. So if you can get like a parent to take a picture of you guys, just either like next to some of your coding or HTML, whatever you're working on. So if you're here, turn your cameras on, get your face in the screen close enough so that we can see it nice and clear. And I will get ready to take a screenshot. All right, I'm gonna take it. Lucas, Emma, Peter, Samuel, if you guys wanna be in the yearbook shot, turn your cameras on. Otherwise, I'm gonna cut you off here. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, got it.
Let's see how much. Okay, if you guys are willing to stay a little bit for me to like explain all the rest of this stuff, you can do so. But you can feel free to leave if you don't have time. So if you start here, I'll just explain the rest of the stuff. So basically, okay. So this callback function gets called every time the router receives a GET request that matches this pattern. And what it does is that it renders the index view and passes the view engine the following data basically that can be used within the view engine. So if we go to views index, we can see that we have a variable substitution here for the title. And since we also passed in a name parameter, we're going to say hello name and welcome to title. Let's see. Can also maybe make it so that the name come from the query parameter. Oh, sure. Give me a second. Okay, yeah. So to get a query parameter, we just use query, and then the parameter name. So in this case, we just use name, and then the user can basically specify the query parameter here in the GET request, and we should be able to display their name in the welcome message. Okay. Yeah. So, okay, we don't have time to go into users, but well, this is another middleware that basically handles the case when the URL doesn't match any pattern that we've specified before, and it's going to create a 404 not found error. That's a common HTTP status code. You can look it up online. And yeah, it'll pass it. Basically, this thing will pass the not found error to this handler, and it'll decide what to output in the response based on whether we're in the development like stage, or we're in the production stage. The development stage basically means that we're still developing it and we're not using it. We're not using this code in an actual website. And production means that we're like using it in an actual website, and we should not be outputting, sensitive data about, why we have this error. And yeah, basically, at the end, we can remove this module.exports because we'll not be using this, we'll not be referencing this app or using it from elsewhere. And we can just do app.listen 8080. So this basically starts the server and make it listen on the port 8080. And so once we start it, we can access the website on port 8080. So in this case, I'm going to use NodeMon, and NodeMon is better than just running Node app.js because it rerun the script every time it sees a change in the file. So I'm gonna start it. Let's start it. Let's try to access. And we have to specify the parameter. Let's say, let's put my own name, see if it works. Yeah. Say it successfully like used the name parameter in the template. And unfortunately, we don't have time, but we will release a more in-depth tutorial and more interesting one on our basically our wiki. If you're interested, you can check it out later. We'll probably release it in about a week or so. So yeah, thanks for coming to this meeting.
I'm assuming you guys don't have questions, so I'm gonna end the meeting for everybody.